I'm starting in the outfield right now. Is that insane?
That's what it's all
That's a great
about.
way to start the outfield. So which position?
Left field.
Left field. All right. Hey, you know, that's where Juan Soto should be.
Yeah, you heard it
So
here first.
I was gonna say, I mean, that's Juan Soto is actually my player comp for myself in softball. So
You know, the
just if you
roster
hit from the
news,
right,
the roster news we never thought we'd be breaking, but here we are. Matt, a full-time outfield starter in the softball league.
doing the Soto shuffle on every take. Slow
yeah,
pitch
it's slow pitch softball.
softball.
Watching it hit home plate, and just being like, ah.
When we were doing intramurals, I definitely bat flipped on Garrett Miller on a walk once. That was great. That was
Dude,
good.
I actually remember that.
Yeah, it was great fun for me. Hello and welcome to another brand new episode of Dingers and Stingers, the podcast that, just like Aaron Judge, had a pretty good April. I'm Dallas, that's Drew, and that's Matt. April was good for us. We got our Instagram up off the ground. We did our live episode for the draft. Go back and check
That's
that
fun.
out if you guys missed
That's
it.
fun.
I feel like we're really getting going here. So, on today's episode of the show, we will talk a little bit later about the baseball happenings. The Tigers are surging. We'll talk about them. We'll also talk about the NL East. There's a little bit of moving and shaking going on over there as well. And then a little bit before that, a little bit later on, we'll talk about the NFL draft and we'll recap. As you all know, we went live for the first round, but there were other rounds after that and more stuff happened. So we'll give our reaction to some of that. But first, we want to start with our warm-ups for today. And our warm-up topic for today is related to the NFL draft. It's the big topic around the NFL draft, and that is Shadeur Sanders. He was the biggest story of the draft weekend for many, many reasons, primarily being that he went in the fifth round, whereas I think a lot of people maybe expected him to go within the first round, if not the first two. And so that did not happen according to plan. There was also a lot of extracurricular, activity going on around Shadeur Sanders that happened over the weekend, and certainly a lot of very interesting reactions from folks around the NFL to the draft slide. So let's talk about that. Where I want to start with Shadeur Sanders is, first of all, what happened? Someone take me through what in the world happened. Just start me with his first impressions in the interview process. How did we get from stud, top quarterback, second quarterback in the class, third quarterback in the class, to where we've ended up over the weekend?
Yeah, you kind of nailed it already, just like bringing up the interviews. Everything that came out post draft basically confirmed like his interview process was pretty bad. Famously, teams love to give players, maybe a full set of tape where they have them break down the film and kind of come back with notes and stuff. And the most famous story of this would be Jamarcus Russell. I don't know if you guys have heard this one, but they didn't think he would do the homework, so they gave him a blank tape. And he came back with like a fake set of notes talking about like blitz pickups and stuff with it. There was no film. They didn't give him film. And there are reports that came out that Shadeur did not pick up on a lot of the little things that basically like the little tricks and the little deceptions that coach put in there that they kind of expect the quarterbacks to see. Um, on top of, I think there was just a certain cockiness of all the like pre-draft video and all this stuff. Like every athletes are cocky. Like let's get that out of the way. He is not an anomaly for being cocky. But I think the issue is when he's going out publicly saying like these, and Dion did it famously, but saying, these teams aren't even going to have a chance to draft me. So like, why bother, talking about them with an interview, or why bother going to meet with the coaches or get their playbooks, their film, all that stuff. It's just, it rubs teams the wrong way. And then, he goes from being the projected, second quarterback in what everyone said leading up to this was a bad quarterback class. So, if Cam Ward was the number one last year when they weren't sure if he was going to transfer or declare for the draft, Cam Ward was being talked about as like a fifth or a sixth round pick. And he skyrockets this year, becomes a first pick. We've seen it happen before. I mean, famously Joe Burrow. But I think the issue is in a draft class like this where Cam Ward goes one and it's already a bad draft, to be the quarterback two of a bad class. I mean, Kenny Pickett was the number one quarterback of his class. The list after that is pretty tough. Um, Kenny Pickett, in and of itself, was a kind of tough experience, as I'm sure fans of that team would tell you. And so when you talk about all the media circus that would come with Shador, when you talk about this attitude and like this entitlement that comes with Shador Sanders, and then you say, well, he's actually not even the best quarterback of his class. It I think a lot of teams realize, hey, 26 and 27 are stacked classes when it comes to quarterbacks. Um, why take such a media circus for what is likely to be your backup quarterback? Um, I don't think there's many quarterbacks drafted this year that are going to see a ton of play time, and even if they do, it won't be for long. I don't think that teams were finding long term answers at quarterback this year. I'd be willing to, put some stake into that. I truly believe this was a down quarterback class, and so yeah, I mean, it's just a number of things. I don't think he deserved falling to the fifth round. I think he's more talented than the fifth. I would have assumed, obviously I had him in my first round in my mock draft, but that's just based off of positional value and all that stuff. But, if you watch the video, I even said, like, I don't think he's that good. I think he is the second best quarterback. Uh, and I still kind of stand by that. And I wouldn't have been shocked to see him in the second or third. Um, but I think it's just all the extracurriculars, like you said, they just kind of stacked up against him. So I don't know. It's a sucky situation. I don't think he deserved all the like stuff and collateral that's come with it, but at the same time, like he kind of did it to himself a little bit. So it's just one of those tough situations. But hey, you still got drafted. Like you're still a quarterback in the NFL. Like make it happen. If you're really that dude, like go be that dude. So yeah.
Yeah, I pretty much agree with everything you said. I feel bad for him in a lot of ways
Yeah.
because I think his dad, being Deion Sanders, being an NFL Hall of Famer, known for his big personality and like showboating and that kind of thing, also happened to be his head coach. Uh,
Well, and let me
Colorado.
say, not just head coach in college, he was also his high school head coach and also his before high school head coach. He's only ever had a singular coach,
Mm.
ever. Like
So
that matters.
So yeah, so I mean, Dion being obviously his father, that's one thing, and then being his college coach specifically, like University of Colorado was like the biggest story in college football last year, and they were like fine. They weren't like an amazing team. They weren't in the playoff or anything. So like all of that, I'm sure his dad was talking him up. Obviously, we've seen his dad talk him up in the media and all that, but I'm sure like behind closed doors too. Like he's like, you're the guy. You're gonna go in the first round. Blah blah blah. And so like he really had no other choice than to believe that he was great, right?
Yeah.
And he's pretty good. Like he was a pretty good college quarterback. There's nothing to sneeze at there. Um, and I'm less concerned than about him being a fifth rounder than I am about him being quarterback 7, 8 off the board, like something along those lines. When it was like 2 or 3 at the worst is kind of what it seemed like.
Yeah.
I will say like yeah I think Dion being being so involved in his life it detracted from him, and I'm sure he didn't do well in these meetings. That's what we're hearing. And it's just a bummer situation for him. I think I was also low on him going into the draft. I was not this low on him. And
Yeah.
obviously I don't have all this information that these NFL teams have, but um, I think it's just a situation of it being overhyped. And uh, I think, I'm going to draw some parallels like uh, LeVar Ball with his sons, hyping them up. And obviously he doesn't have the same platform that Deion Sanders does. And his sons have had some success and, but maybe not all what it was cracked up to be at the time. Um, it's just, it's the helicopter parent to the extreme. It's just like and I could see NFL teams just being wary of that. Like, this kid, maybe they don't think he's mature. Like you said, his dad's been his coach his whole life. What's he gonna do when all of a sudden he has a new coach and he has to answer to people and like has to listen to instruction and take tips and all this? I could see NFL teams, especially in this day and age, just not wanting the media circus of it all. And I think about like Tim Tebow, for example, when he was in the NFL. Not even talking about his draft because he ended up being a first rounder, but like when he left the Broncos and he was like on the Jets for a minute and then the Patriots for a minute, it was like
he was the biggest story everywhere he went.
It's like it's just not like, okay, for a guy who's not even supposed to start on this team, he's not worth all this attention and all this brouhaha from the media.
Tim Tebow baseball highlights still pop up on my Twitter. Like, it's just one of those things, like, when you are someone who is so polarizing in the media, like, there is something that can be inherently fun and good about that, and also can be a big distraction for your teammates and the people around you. And I think, and you brought up, like, what's he going to do when he gets in with, like, a coach who's going to, be able to tell him no or be able to tell him whatever. I don't know if you saw, Dion already said he's setting up a meeting with Stefanski. He wants to meet with the Browns coaching staff to talk to them about what Shadeur's role is going to be on Cleveland. And it's like, you can't do that. Like, you're not the coach anymore. And like you're saying, like, this helicopter parent mentality, it's such a tough line because, like, you want to see supportive parents, and at its core, I know he's not doing this with ill intention, but at the same time, like, he's not your player anymore. And the fact that you're just using all your influence and all your pull to try and set up a meeting with Stefanski, and granted, he could just go in and just ask, right? Like, hey, what are your plans for Shadeur? I'm just curious. I don't know if we'll ever know what goes on in that conversation, but it's not a good look that your son had all this media attention, all this national attention, has a massive slide in the draft, do a lot to this attention, and then you make it publicly known that you're going to use your pull to get this meeting. And it just it leaves such a bad taste in the mouth of, like, anybody who, like, genuinely wants, like, who enjoys football for the football, right? From an entertainment perspective, I guess this is fantastic, like, great writing, but from a football perspective, it's like, you don't like this. This isn't a good look.
Well, and, like, think about, like, all the quarterbacks, any player drafted ever. Like, when has the head coach of their college team met with the coach of their NFL team to be like, I want to make sure you're using it right? Or a player's father. Like, the father gets, like, the handshake, meet and greet, welcome to the family type of thing. The college coach gives you the best of luck. They have nothing to do with the NFL part of it. It's just it's a complete overstep one way or another. He's just using his influence. And look, I like Deion Sanders. I like watching Deion highlights. I liked him when he was like an NFL Network guy. I always thought he brought entertainment to football in a good way. This to me is a complete, like, I can do what I want. I run this shit, and it rubs me the wrong way. And I just don't think that's what sports are about. Like, I remember playing high school baseball, totally different thing, obviously, but and there's certain kids who their dad would be in the stands telling them, like, no, you got to do this, you did. And the smart dads were like, well, my kid is playing on the high school team now. He has his own coaches. Like, that's it. And so, like, if you can't let go of that, I mean,
I was gonna say the same thing. Like, yeah, we're looking at this from the perspective of, like, a college coach to an NFL coach, whatever. But it's like, at any level, it's basically unacceptable once you hit, like, high school for a dad to try and come in and tell a coach what to do with their son.
Absolutely.
Or kid in general, right? But it's like, at some point, and the thing is, I think Deion knows that. That's why he became the coach, because he didn't want someone else telling his son what to do, right? Like, he wanted to have that control, for better or for worse. And look, awesome, it worked. Your son's in the NFL. Like, at the end of the day, it's
let
like,
him go. Let him go.
Yeah, let him go. You got him to where he could be. Like, there's nothing more like Dion could do for Shadeur. It is now fully up to Shadeur to make a legacy of his own, and it will never happen if Dion keeps doing this because he's going to start pushing people's buttons the wrong way. And people are like, I guarantee people in the NFL are only going to have so much patience for this stuff. It's not going to last long if Dion keeps it up because it's not worth it. Right now, as we speak right now, Shadeur Sanders is a backup quarterback. If he comes in and plays well and he does all this stuff and he starts to develop better, that's awesome. And you know what? For the kid, I hope he does, right? Like, why not? I hope he's good. But right now, he's not worth being on your team as a backup. But someone had to take him. Somebody was going to have to take him. And, you know, we'll see. I think Cleveland is maybe the worst possible place he could have ended up for himself. Like, it just, you're talking about an already unstable situation going to one of the least stable franchises ever. So we'll see, man. We'll see. It's an interesting situation for sure.
Yeah, time will absolutely be the tell for Shadeur Sanders,
Yeah.
and what happens with him. Not only not the second quarterback taken, but not even the first quarterback taken by Cleveland this draft. So, I mean,
Yeah.
this is yeah, it was really something to see. Time will tell, and we'll see how he turns out. But let's turn our attention to the broader NFL draft and talk about that a little bit. We wanted to make sure we got to everything NFL draft related here on the show as a recap. So let's start with just the classic question. Which team had your guys' favorite draft? We'll start with Drew.
Yeah. Well, I like to preface this by saying like favorite to I'm cool doing favorite least favorite. When it gets further than that with draft, it's just like you don't know. We have no idea really. I mean, you can like kind of guess. You see different draft ratings, draft grades. I saw one like draft grading thing, and like the worst grade any team got was a B minus, and it's like, okay, so they all took
Yeah.
they all took like pretty good college players, like. So that being said, like I know nothing, but just instant reaction. My favorite draft of the weekend was the New York Giants.
Hmm.
They had the third pick. They went with Abdul Carter, which that was the pick for that time after Cam Ward went first and then Travis Hunter went second.
Yep.
And then I like what they did trading back into the first round to get Jackson Dart. I'm not the highest on any of these quarterbacks besides Cam Ward, but if you identify your guy and you want Jackson Dart to be your quarterback of the future, trading into the first round is great because it gives you that fifth year option. And what they gave up was not very much, considering the very next pick was going to be the Rams pick. The Falcons traded up for that, gave up next year's first, whereas the Giants only gave up. They swapped like their early second for this one, and then gave up a third this year and a third next year. So it's like,
Yep.
in the grand scheme of things, not that much. And then in the third round, they got Darius Alexander, who I think. He was from Toledo, so like not a big powerhouse type of school, but like all the reports are that he was extremely solid and showed up at the Senior Bowl and stuff. So I like addressing the D line in that way. And then they got one of the most notable names in the draft, even if he doesn't end up being a stud, Cam Skattebo from Arizona State, who just runs like hell, and we're just excited to see what he can do in the NFL. So in terms of my surface level NFL knowledge, especially when it comes to evaluating college players and all that, I just thought the Giants did well in this draft, and I thought they had some fun with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll start off I had two honorable mentions. I had a tough time with this one because I actually thought there were some really good drafts this year. One of my honorable mentions was the Giants, for all the reasons you said. Abdul Carter, in my opinion, is probably the best player in the draft, in my opinion. I love the Scadaboo pick. I mean, I think in the right situation, if a team gives him an opportunity, he can be a workhorse back. I don't care that he's slow. Don't matter. Like, if you can't tackle a dude, you can't tackle a dude. Um, and yeah, the whole thing with Dart, like, at least you got a quarterback in the first, so you get the option of the fifth year. And, we may not be high on this draft pick or on this draft of quarterbacks as a whole, but at the same time, like, what was the most glaring need they had? Quarterback. That held their team back so badly. So, love the Giants draft. Honorable mention as well was Texans. I thought they had a great draft. They grabbed two of my favorite receivers, both from Iowa State. I think those guys are going to be studs, especially if Tank Dell misses this season and the loss of Stephon Diggs. But they also were able to draft some offensive linemen, which is obviously going to help them. I think that was their biggest weakness. So I really liked the Texans draft too. But sadly, but also fun because, this team will forever, until he retires, be a really big tension point for me. It's the Seattle Seahawks. I think that they absolutely killed this draft. I think they did everything correctly, and I love that for my boy Dallas. I love that for my boy Sam. I hate it as a Rams fan, so it's this really interesting middle ground where I'm like, they killed it, which is awesome, and it sucks, but dude, they nailed this draft. Like, top to bottom, it's picks that I loved. It was guys that I was hoping no other team was really going to be high on because I wanted him on the Rams. It's like every single pick was awesome. I think that they are building a culture and kind of a team identity that is obvious. Like, you see what they're trying to build, and they're not being shy about it. They're like, this is who we're going to be. Stop us. Like, if you can, stop us. They probably have the biggest holistic defensive back group in all of the NFL. I mean, three of the starting DBs are what, like 6'3", 200? Ain't no DBs be doing that. Like, they're huge. They're going to try and bully people. They're trying to get back to that mean style of defense. And on offense, I mean, they got some good weapons. They didn't just let Lockett and trade DK go without having any replacements. They were able to go get some weapons. They get Sam's replacement of the future. I genuinely do believe Milroe, with the right coaching, can be that dude. The athletic tools are all there. It's just a matter of if he can kind of put it together. So, Seahawks were my favorite draft, man. I think they killed it. There's not much else to say about that.
Yeah, a lot of people like the Seahawks draft.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I do too. I guess. As much as I know about it, but I was very surprised to see so many people so high on it, just because that's not typical of what I normally
Interior
see.
offensive line in the first, brother.
Yeah, and so look, I knew that I was happy with how it went. I just didn't know, as the weeks gone on, how happy everyone else also was with how it went. One thing that I'll say on these new players for Seattle, slightly relevant to what we're talking about now, but they've given Nick Emenwari, they've given him the number 3, which is pretty crazy.
Mm-hmm.
They're it's essentially crowning him. Like, they're saying this guy is going to be a good contributing member of the Seahawks for a long time. And because if they didn't think that, they wouldn't give him that number, I would imagine. And then also, Gray Zabel got 76, which is Steve Hutchinson's number. Great Seahawks offensive lineman who helped the Seahawks sort of find and scout Gray Zabel at the Senior Bowl. Hutchinson was very involved in that process. And so a couple of legendary numbers being given out to the guys in this draft class, especially right there at the top 2.
Yep.
So, and then look, Milroe, I was as surprised as anybody that
That
they
might
took
be
him.
the biggest wild card of the whole draft. Like, his potential is like near uncapped, just based off of
Yeah.
how athletic he tests.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't watch any tape of his before the draft, but I certainly have watched some since. And I mean, if he can figure out, how to throw an accurate ball middle field, and intermediate lengths of routes, and
Mm-hmm.
he's got the deep balls there, the running's there, and everything. But if he can figure out how to, play normally, and more conventionally, I think it'll be very interesting to see
Yeah.
how that turns out for Seattle in a couple years' time. But I'll be interested to see that. But yeah, so okay, so those are the good drafts. So let's talk about anybody that you think flunked the draft. Do we have any, real stinkers here? Drew, what do you think?
Yeah, it's hard. Same way I prefaced the draft I liked. It's hard to say that a draft class will for sure be bad because these teams have their own evaluations. They know what they're doing. But on the surface, I did not love the Chicago Bears draft. They had the number 10 pick, and they took a tight end, which I didn't think was their biggest need. And not only that, they took who almost everyone had as the tight end 2 when the tight end 1 was still there. So I thought that was interesting. Clearly, Ben Johnson got his guy. He liked him. But it's just not the pick I would have gone with when I think they had bigger needs at offensive line and defensive line. And then in round 2, they took a wide receiver who had some character concerns, which, looking into it further, didn't seem like the most concrete character concerns. It wasn't like some kind of criminal history or anything like that. But still, I just think they didn't really need the receiving weapons and the tight end weapon that highly. I would have preferred them to upgrade at the line. It seemed also, because they traded back multiple times, it seemed like they wanted a certain position or a certain guy, and then he wasn't there, and they had to move back. And so it seemed like maybe it wasn't their favorite either. I'm sure they are happy with the group of guys they got, but it seems like maybe things didn't fall their way, and that's unfortunate because I was kind of excited about this Bears team. No reason to be unexcited now, but I just would have liked a more solid draft from them.
Yeah, man. When the rumors were that they were going to move up and get Genty, it was like, oof, like that offense would have been insane with the guys that they already had. And now it's like, well, you get a tight end and another receiver who's going to be behind 2 awesome receivers. Like, just doesn't feel as impactful. So the Bears were up there for me as well. But for me personally, dude, I think it's the Falcons. You kind of mentioned on it briefly with the Giants and their trade. They gave up too much. It's not even that I dislike the player that they come up and got. They came up and got James Pierce, the edge rusher from Tennessee. He might end up being pretty solid. But for the pick that it was and the value of the projected 26, I mean, I just feel like there were so many glaring needs, and it felt like their whole draft plan was built around just like a sense of like desperately trying to, make something splashy happen. And my dad texted me right after the draft, and then we hopped on a call, and it was funny because like we literally said, I wonder if Raheem is just like a plant from the Rams. Like, because how did we get so much for that pick? It's
right
like,
after the Giants
literally
traded up. Like, how do you not
next pick?
How do you not be like, hey, so the Giants were able to trade up to technically one better spot for far less. Could we do
and it's like obviously the Giants were a few picks ahead of the Falcons as well, so there was that gap. But it's like the value swap was so lopsided in favor of the Rams that it almost made it bad for the Falcons just as a whole. Like, despite the player they get. And again, time tells everything with the draft. Like you say, it's hard to give these types of like gut reactions right off the bat. I'm going purely based off of projected value of draft slots. They gave up too much. And, on my notes, I wrote, the Falcons messed up on and off the field. Obviously, they had some other drama that comes out about them during the draft, and that's a whole thing. It just felt like the organization as a whole is kind of just sloppy, to be honest. And I saw a thing even, like, they've been penalized in the draft, like, 4 or 5 times over the last, like, couple of years, like 10 years, for other things, like the tampering for Kirk Cousins, certain other, like, little minor scandals where they've had picks taken, they've had fines given. Like, the Falcons are just they're kind of messy. They're kind of messy right now.
I mean, even last year, they signed Kirk Cousins to a massive contract and then immediately shock everyone, including Kirk Cousins,
which they got penalized for.
by
They
drafting a quarterback.
Yeah, they got penalized for the Kirk Cousins signings because it was tampering. Like they got caught with tampering. So it's like they got caught tampering to sign a guy who they immediately drafted the replacement for. And
Yeah.
it feels like a very like it feels like nothing on the Falcons organization is working in the same direction. It feels like a lot of great things pulling in opposite ways. So it just leaves kind of a messy situation.
Such a winnable division too, but
The
that's
most.
probably contributing to why it's a winnable
Hmm.
division.
I feel like that in terms of how I view them anyway, like Falcons might have the greatest disparity between owner and head coach. Like I view Raheem Morris as such a good head coach, and their
Hmm.
owner as just such a bumbling, stumbling owner.
Buffoon.
Yeah, and so I think
Nice.
maybe the widest gap there between what's going on over there. Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea what's going on in Atlanta, but we'll see. Okay, so we wanted to talk about this too. The quarterbacks of this draft were talked about a lot. Mostly the talk is that they are kind of mid, aside from Cam Ward. And so I wanted to talk about, get your guys' thoughts on which quarterbacks you guys think, will actually turn out here. So the question is, which quarterback not named Cam Ward will start a game first? That was taken in this draft. So, give me your guys' thoughts on who among the draftees, not Cam Ward, might start first.
Yeah. In terms of actually starting a game, I went a little unconventional. Ironically, me and Drew I think ended up with like similar answers, but I went with Will Howard out of Ohio State. He got drafted by Steelers, and the Steelers drafting a quarterback was the most obvious pick in the entire draft. It's shocking that they waited so long to do so. But I actually think they got kind of the perfect quarterback for what they want to do. He is a big, strong guy. His measurables are almost identical to Josh Allen, in terms of his size, his weight, kind of the arm strength. Like it's all there for Will Howard, and the dude just played in big games. Like that's all he did. He went to Ohio State, and clearly they performed on the biggest stage and dominated. Um, and so it's one of those picks where I'm like, could we see? I believe he was sixth round or seventh round, but Gardner Minshew when he was drafted in the sixth to the Jaguars, and he stepped in that season, and he kind of had an awesome season. And I don't know if the success lasts, but I could see that for Will Howard. I mean, if you're talking about a place to be drafted, there's a lot worse for a rookie quarterback. Their offensive line is at worst average, and they've got two ginormous, big, mean, aggressive receivers to throw to. Solid tight ends, should be committed to the run game. They drafted the running back from Ohio State, so I mean they should be committed to the run game. Um, so yeah, I really like his setup there in Pittsburgh, and I would not be shocked if it turns out he ended up being the starter for them this season because I don't know who else is going to be there that is worth playing.
Yeah, I completely agree. That was going to be my pick. I do have a backup pick because I want to keep things fun and original. But my thinking was Steelers don't have another really good option at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
That's the main thing. But the second thing is like he's the type of guy like he's played the big games. He's
Mm-hmm.
the like not prone to the massive mistakes maybe, but also not prone to making the big plays. But if he can just kind of move the ball down the field, they have receivers like you said, DK Metcalf and George Pickens there. I could see the Steelers being exactly how they've been the last several years, which is like good enough to maybe sneak into the playoffs.
Mm-hmm.
But I could see Will Howard being the right type of guy for that spot versus maybe someone with flashier talent who's more prone to mistakes. But I think, if I'm picking someone else, I think I'm going to go with one of these Browns guys. So they drafted Dylan Gabriel, and they also drafted, as we talked about, Shadeur Sanders. My guess is Dylan Gabriel would be the guy to win out there between those two because he was drafted higher. Seems like that means they probably believe in him more. So he would get the first shot. And it's a similar thing. The Browns don't have a super solid quarterback situation. They have Deshaun Watson, who's coming off an ACL tear. If he's ready for the season, even if he is, like, I don't know if they want to roll with him because he was just so bad last year. And then they have Joe Flacco as like the stopgap guy. He helped them make the playoffs a couple of years ago. I'm pretty certain that Joe Flacco will be their starting quarterback out of camp unless there's an injury. But it's Joe Flacco. He's pushing 40. He's nothing special, nothing, we've seen him. So I could see the Browns being mid or worse and being like, okay, got nothing to lose. Let's try one of our rookies out. And Dylan Gabriel gets the ball. I know Jackson Dart was drafted higher, but I think they're going to give him some time behind because they signed 2 veterans in Russell Wilson and Jameis Winston. So I figure those guys will kind of run
Steeler
things.
and ex Brown.
yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'll say quarterback needy teams is where I'm looking, and I'd say the Browns or the Steelers are those places.
Dude, kind of crazy thinking that's the same division, and people will still talk about that being like the toughest division and all that. Like, their quarterbacks suck. Like, they have Joe Burrow and Lamar, and for as awesome as they are, I feel like they're equally bad on the other 2 teams. Like,
yeah,
those might be the 2 worst quarterback rooms in the NFL.
It's the defense that's up there.
Yeah.
Yeah, those defenses in the NFC North are crazy, or AFC North are crazy. So okay, all right. So those are our calls on some of these young quarterbacks, Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel. Will Howard and Will Howard. But Will Howard and Dylan Gabriel for the purposes of an engaging, nuanced conversation. So we'll finish out with the NFL draft here with any draft oddities you wanted to talk about. I mean, I didn't really, really keep up too much with a ton of it, but anything weird happen? Did you like any of the players that came out and introduced picks? I mean, we can talk about the prank call here if you guys want, but because that was the headline grabber.
I just have one little note for like fun stuff from the draft. My favorite pick, beyond any first round picks or anything, Steelers picked in the 4th round from Ohio State, Jack Sawyer. I've never heard of this guy, but he's my new favorite guy up there because as Dallas knows, last year finally watched Lost for the first time. And there's a big power struggle between Jack and Sawyer, and they're 2 great characters, and mix them up into one, give me Jack Sawyer for the Steelers. I think he's gonna have a big year. I know nothing about him.
You had to wait to watch Lost until people who were born the year it started could be drafted in the NFL. You had to wait. You had to wait for it.
Okay, 2 things. One, Jack Sawyer is actually, talent-wise, I think he was one of the highest-rated defensive end edge rushers.
I know.
Yeah, it's crazy. But speaking about years that they were born, my fun little tidbit: the last player that will ever be born in the 1900s was drafted this year. Our childhood is officially over. There's no more 90s kids coming out for the draft. We are old. Officially,
we're finished.
Officially, we're a little cooked. I had a softball game on Monday. My shoulder still hurts. It's not good what's going on age-wise. But the last 90s kid was drafted. Quarterback to the Saints.
That's pretty crazy. I want to talk about this. The NFC West is one of these divisions, but there's another one, I think, another division. They announced something called rivalries. As far as I know, these.
I thought it was the East. I thought it was NFC and AFC East this year.
The Rams definitely have it.
I know
the Rams were posting about it.
Yeah, for us it did, and that's the only reason I know about it is because it came across my Seahawks-related
It's uniforms, right?
Yeah, so there's going to be games where it's Seahawks and Niners they got paired up, and I assume the Rams and the Cardinals are the other pair. And
Oh,
so
AFC East and NFC West. So yeah, I misread that. Okay.
there we go. So when the Seahawks and the Niners play each other, maybe one of the two games or both of them, they're going to have special uniforms, and there's going to be something going on. I don't know what else is about that, like that makes it special. Like, is it going to be like on Thursday night, or like
I
I
really
guess
haven't heard anything either.
we'll wait and see when the schedule comes out. But what's the big idea here? Does anyone have any idea?
Look, I this is my this is I sometimes share my old man takes. This is my young man take. I love it. I love when they do fun uniform stuff, even though most of the time they kind of look bad. Like, you could pick someone from Twitter who could design cooler uniforms and all that. But, like, I love trying new things. You get the regular standard uniform for, like, 90% of games. In football, maybe a little less because there's less games overall. But, like, we, we, we see the same thing all the time. And I get it. People like the classics. I do too. That's why we get it the majority of the games. I like having a little fun with the uniforms and doing it for like rivalries specifically. I think that's a really fun idea. So we haven't seen them yet, right?
No.
We have not seen them, but from what I'm reading, this is basically the NFL's version of like the City Connect jerseys, in that from what I'm reading, Nike put out they want these to be highly like cultural and draw upon like the team's history, the community, all of that. So I imagine this is going to be like the City Connect jerseys, except they're just going to use them in these rivalry games of like, hey, you're wearing your City Connect against a division rival, not just like on Fridays or whatever.
And I think
So
that's great. They've done it in basketball for years. They come up with these crazy
yeah,
uniforms every year.
yeah,
Um, So and then they just started, like you mentioned, City Connect in MLB started in
mm-hmm.
2021, and now we're cycling through where teams are getting new ones, which is exciting and cool. So
Yeah. So
I
this is
love it.
saying each team as they are set, because like there's obviously going to be the teams this year, then 26, and then 27, and that'll encompass all the teams. Um, but this set of 8 teams that are going to unveil this year are going to have these uniforms for 3 years,
And then they'll get new ones.
and then
Okay.
they'll probably get new ones. So
All right.
I'm excited because the AFC
yeah,
East and
I'm
NFC
pumped.
West, like there's some cool, like LA, we should get some cool like stuff.
Seattle is going to be
Seattle,
sick. San
New
Francisco is
England,
awesome. Like
New
it's some
England.
pretty
I'm excited to
iconic
see that.
cities.
Yeah.
Buffalo, is there going to be like chicken wings involved? Like I'm excited.
Dude,
Yeah.
imagine it's
Uh,
just a folding table.
yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see what teams come up with, and certainly what my team comes up with. So yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I wanted to know if anyone knew anything about it, which I thought it was interesting, but that
No,
sounds actually pretty good. All right, so we'll end NFL segment here. Look, the draft was great. We got all these new players in. They're not making any money, relatively speaking. I'll tell you who is making some money is George Kittle. At the end of the day,
yeah.
he was extended a 4-year extension, 76.5 mil or so, 40 million of that guaranteed. That extension news dropped early this week. So the Niners extend George Kittle. What does this tell us about how the Niners see themselves? Kind of a weird year for them last year. They were injured a lot, did not perform as well as we know they can. And so, what does this tell us about where they see themselves at?
I think one of the bright spots for the Niners last year, one of the only ones, was George Kittle. Even in a down year with a lot of injuries, he had an awesome season. I think this tells them they basically are bought into this roster they have. Like, they don't want to tear it down and rebuild. They want to see if they can kind of right the ship, if you will. I don't know what I think this means in terms of the Brock Purdy negotiations. I've heard mixed reviews on what those negotiations are looking like. I kind of don't know who I can trust when it comes to that reporting. But as far as the George Kittle stuff, I mean, he's awesome. Like, as a player, I think he's awesome. He's a great run blocker, great receiver. I guess good for the Niners for locking up one of their good players, but who knows, man? I don't think this roster is the roster that gets it done, but I also can respect a team that doesn't want to have to full tear down, so who knows?
Yeah, my take on this is, you do what you can to keep your guys, right? And George Kittle is one of their guys. And I really, especially in NFL, I don't think it means as much as like it sounds like it would mean. Like, ooh, a big extension, a lot of money. That's like a real investment. My guess, they do this to Deebo Samuel like 2 years ago. He like held out, and then they gave him a big contract, and now he is
And
traded.
Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, and and he's still on the team, but there have been rumors around him. I think this 4-year, $76.4 million extension is really like George Kittle gets to be here for the next couple of years. He's going to decline in production. He'll get released or traded or whatever, and then we'll pay the next guy. It's just how it goes.
100%. And especially, we don't know if there's any void years on the deal either, because, like, Matthew Stafford just signed a 3-year extension, like, yesterday. Like, he's not going to be here for 3 more years, but he signed a 3-year because it's how you spread out the money. Like,
yeah, and it's like helps the cap or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
As far as Brock Purdy, like, who knows? If the 49ers are smart, which I feel like they, in terms of like, the front office has kind of proven to be pretty smart the last several years, they're not going to throw the bag at Brock Purdy. I think they know they can get Brock Purdy's production much cheaper. And if Brock Purdy thinks he can get something big on the open market, then good for him. Let him hit it. We'll see what happens.
Don't listen to us, though. Sign him. That'd be great. Okay, so that's it for NFL this week. Let's go ahead and get to some baseball stuff. We love to talk baseball here. Look, we wanted to talk about one team specifically we wanted to open our MLB segment with because the Detroit Tigers are surging. They are on fire. They're really sort of pulling away in the Central a little bit and pulling away in the AL right now. We talked a little bit over the last time we talked about baseball a couple weeks ago on our show that the AL is kind of looking very strangely mid, things like that. And so the Tigers seem to have, seized an opportunity here to get hot early on and sort of establish themselves as kind of a team to be reckoned with up here. So let's talk Tigers. What do you guys think is sort of the driving factor behind the Tigers' surge right now?
I think
well,
go ahead, Matt. Go ahead.
Well, I didn't have a ton to say. I just think, like, this is a team we saw surge at the end of last year, right? Like, they made that big push at the very end of the season to squeak into playoffs and then actually ended up winning a series. Like, they showed they had some talent, and I feel like they've been one of those teams that's kind of less talked about, not like, the Orioles, but they've been sitting on some prospects that have been highly regarded for a little while, and the guys are just MLB players now. Like, they're no longer these like young pup rookie of the year type guys. It's like, hey, these are just dudes who have been playing for a few years, and they're playing. And the biggest one for me is definitely Javi Baez. I mean, everyone talked about him being the most like checked out player. When they played the Padres, that dude was laughing. He was smiling. It looked like he was having fun. And he was just destroying us, both playing in center field, which is insane, but also just he was raking. Like, I think to me, that's the big thing. They bring in Jack Flaherty for, whatever. So I don't know. I think they proved last year at the end of the season, like, this could be a competitive team, and they've kind of just figured it out. And I also think they kind of figured out how to re-unlock Javi Baez.
Yeah, I think what's happening is the what if scenario. You have a what if scenario for every team where it's like, well, if this guy can play to his potential, and if this guy can do what he did in that year, Javi Baez was an MVP candidate once upon a time. Now that was a long time ago now, but there's a reason he got a big contract in the first place. Now, I am as surprised as anyone that he is doing as well as he is this year. I don't know if it's sustainable. I have no clue, but I love it because he's long been one of my favorite players. Him in center field is completely wacky because he was such a good shortstop. I have no doubt that he would be able to play any position on the field from an athletic standpoint. It's always been the swing that's the problem. But I want to highlight a couple guys that it seemed like the Tigers and MLB as a whole had given up on, and they were both pick 1-1 in the draft in their respective draft years. The first is starting pitcher Casey Mize, who the Tigers, like you said, Matt, they stormed into the playoffs last year. They did that on one starting pitcher. Granted, he was maybe the best pitcher in all of baseball last year, Tariq Skubal. But they really didn't have guys who could start playoff games. They were doing bullpen games for these, vitally important games.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons was Casey Mize was bad and hurt and bad. And so far this year, he looks great. He has a 2.12 ERA, a 2.44 expected ERA, so it's not like he's pitching, way above his shoes there. He was, I believe it was the 2018 draft. He was the first pick overall. And I think the Tigers were like, bummer. Like, he didn't pan out. And they threw him at the back of the rotation because they need someone there. And he's looked great this year. And so I'm really happy for him. I think he's, keep it going. And that's a big step. Obviously, you got Skubal at the top. Flaherty is a nice addition. Jackson Jobe is one of the top prospects in all of baseball. He was also a very high pick. I think he was third overall in his draft year. So I like the rotation. I see no reason to doubt the rotation, really. But then the other guy I want to talk about is Spencer Torkelson, who I believe it was the 2020 draft. He was number 1 overall. He was written off to the point where they signed Gleyber Torres to play second base, and they were going to move their second baseman Colt Keith over to play first base. And that left Spencer Torkelson basically without a job. He was pretty good in 23, and then did so bad in 24 that he got sent back down to the minors for a spell. Did not make their playoff roster, but so far this year, he's getting on base at a 359 clip, slugging at a 537 clip. He already has 8 home runs, which I believe he reached in like August last year, like sometime in the middle of summer last year. He hit his 8th home run. He had it by the end of April this year. His K percentage is still high, but his walk percentage has jumped up 5%. So I really like what Spencer Torkelson. It seems like maybe this was their plan all along, but a fire was lit under his ass a little bit, and he's playing like it. So I think the Tigers have a really interesting team. It is maybe the worst division in baseball, so like they should be able to take off from there. No reason they should slow down anytime soon. And then you got AJ Hinch managing them. I think, cheating scandal aside with Houston, I think he's definitely one of the better managers in the sport. So, yeah, I like what they're doing over there.
Yeah, I think this is the year where if you're the Tigers, your mission is to show that, last year you didn't just, you didn't just sneak in, you didn't just, stumble into the postseason, and you're going to try to make it again this year as a division winner, perhaps. And so, the idea, if that's the idea, so far going very well. My Puerto Rico Javi Baez shirt has been dusted off. We're ready to rock. We've been rocking it, so we're ready for whatever comes with the Tigers. But yeah, I mean, their next 2 series, they're playing one of these series starting the day we're recording today. But their next 2 series are the Angels and the Rockies. So it sounds like there's going to be some more winning coming for Detroit here over the weekend. And so, at least we expect, certainly expect a lot more winning. So. Yeah. This roll may can just continue to go on. Speaking of teams that are on a roll, the Mets have started off really well. And let's talk about the NL East because I think that's a really interesting division to watch right now. Obviously the Mets are starting off really very, very well. But the Braves, a team that started off very, very poor, have been sort of finding something a little bit here as April has gone on. And so they're sort of making a push toward the top of the division now. And then, the Phillies also, notable in sort of an average way. I would say, although they've been hot this week. Certainly, I think that they've now won maybe 4 or 5 in a row now. And so, the Phillies, while this week have been pretty hot, so far have been a little bit up and down. And so I want to talk about the NL East real briefly. What sticks out to you guys here? Talk Braves a little bit too. But yeah, what sticks out to you guys about the NL East?
To me, it's funny. The season, you kind of forget every year in the off season. You forget the ups and downs that really go on in the season, and you just kind of remember the records at the end. And like, we know that the Braves, the Phillies, and the Mets all made the playoffs last year. We know what they did in the offseason, and we all expected them to be right back in the running for the playoffs. And right now, they're first, second, and third in their division. Braves started off so bad that they really have had their work cut out for them to get back into the hunt. They're still under 500, but they've been playing much better lately. I think at the end of the year, in some order, it's just going to be first, second, third place, and it's like we all predicted. So in some ways, it's like not as exciting as it may seem, because it's like, yeah, that's like, these are good baseball teams that are going to be good baseball teams. There's reasons to be really high on any of them. There's reasons to have a little bit of doubt on any of them, because, like the Mets have been the hottest team. They've been getting out of this world starting pitching from guys that, like, you would not expect it. And so you can, on one hand, say, like, the Mets know how to find them, and on the other hand, say, this is going to come back down to earth at some point, because it has to. The Phillies, they're so top-heavy with their talent, and their pitching staff is great, but, like, Aaron Nola has looked a little shaky, and these guys are getting up there in comparison to a lot of the other good teams in the league. That they're an older bunch, and their bullpen is shaky. And then the Braves just started off so slow. They have had bad injury luck in the past. Profar's on his suspension right now. Strider came back and then immediately got hurt again. So we'll see. But Acuna is on his way back. So there's reason to be hopeful about the Braves being a better team down the road. And they've already been playing much better baseball. So at the end of the day, I think it's kind of what we expected. It's just not in the way that we expected it to happen.
Right. It's such an interesting, point you make about, you kind of forget about, all the little ups and downs. And I wonder how much we'll remember about this start of the year by when we get to the end, based on how it goes. But the Phillies, I want to talk about them just for a quick. They are sort of, like you mentioned, in the sort of waning part of this window that they have here. Ostensibly, some of these players will be departing soon, or at least age, and continue to age into non-prime years. And so, do you think that they would have any urgency at the trade deadline? And if they did, what would they target?
Yeah, I think
so. Well, it sounds like we're about to say the same thing, which is, yeah, I think they will have some urgency with the trade deadline. I wouldn't be shocked if we're about to say the same thing. I think it's got to be their bullpen. I mean, I watched their game. It was either yesterday or the day before, where they were playing the Nats, and they could not close a game. They got a 2-run lead going into the 9th, gave it up. Then in the 10th, they grabbed the lead, they gave it up. And it's just like, you have this team that is older. You don't need to be dragging them into these, extra inning games against teams that you should be able to just beat. And that type of stuff catches up to you, especially when you're an older team. Like, you got to be able to manage innings. You've got to be able to manage how much your guys are playing. It's a long season. So, yeah, I would absolutely believe that the Phillies are going to be aggressive, knowing they might be able to just kind of throw in everything they've got for a last shot here. Because, the Dodgers, as much as they're awesome and they have a great record, they proved, they still are beatable. You can go beat the Dodgers still. So it's not even one of those oh, well, why bother? It's dude, go get yourself a good bullpen, maybe 2 guys, and see what you can do. Because right now the bullpen looked miserable. They have 1 guy who had less than a 6 or 7 ERA. It's, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think they'll be aggressive. I think they will because their window's closing, and I think they will because they're a good team. And when you're a good team at the trade deadline, you're usually aggressive. I will say, yeah, they should add bullpen help. That's definitely a need. I expect them to add in that area, but at the same time, every trade deadline that is the most valuable thing. Unless there's some unicorn player who's going to get traded that happens every couple of years. But every team's going to be looking for bullpen help, and it's a matter of can you meet the price. I do think the Phillies have an advantage in that Dave Dombrowski operates under, I don't care about the prospects. I care about the major league team. But the disadvantage to that is he has already acted like that in the past, so their prospect pool maybe isn't as strong as some other teams. And if these other teams are willing to go the extra mile for these guys, they might not be able to keep up in a bidding war in that sense. Well, I would be interested to see if they decide to upgrade a position that they have covered technically, but it's like maybe a third baseman because Alec Boehm is not super strong. I know there was trade rumors around him this past offseason. Nick Castellanos is not what he used to be, and he certainly isn't a great right fielder. So do they try to get outfield help? At this point, I haven't even really begun to think about who could be available in this realm, but I think they'll want improvements on defense. I could see, and this is not a trade obviously, but I could see them swapping Bryson Stott and Trey Turner in the infield. Because Stott is a pretty good defender over at second base. He's played shortstop. That's his natural position. Turner is kind of losing a step there. Maybe Turner moves to the outfield. He's still fast, and that's where he started his major league career because there was a need for it at the time on the Nationals. I don't know. The Phillies are definitely one of the most interesting teams, and obviously, I Red Sox will always be the team I root for. But thinking of the contending teams, I would love to see the Phillies cross the finish line, win a World Series. Especially Bryce Harper's one of my all-time favorite players. I would love to see that for him, and I just think they're an easy team to root for. So I'm excited to see what happens. We're still obviously a decent ways away from the trade deadline, but it could get really interesting with all these teams competing for the same guys.
Yep, sure could. Look, if bullpen's what they're after, Kenley Jansen, 6 saves already. We'll see. All right. Look, let's go to fan corner now. Let's talk our teams. So let's start with San Diego and the Padres. Matt, what's going on with the Padres?
Yeah, so after our crazy good start, we had a few injuries, and it kind of just felt like the wheels were falling off the wagon already. We had a terrible, terrible road trip, and I wasn't sure what was gonna kind of happen, but it's a long season. I feel like I get caught up in the moment a little too much with baseball. It's a long season. We start to get a little healthy. Luis Ariz comes back, and even though he doesn't, hit 4 hits a game, it's still the lineup just feels longer and better with him in it. And all of a sudden, we're winning games again. I mean, we come out and we just went back to back against the Giants, who have been one of the better teams in baseball. And yeah, I mean, the Padres are in a good spot. I don't think that we're going to do what we did at the beginning of the season. I don't think we're going to win 110 games and be first place but I think we're a good team. And I think clearly we're a good team, and we still have some guys who need to come back. Jackson Merrill's almost back. We've been without him. Yu Darvish is looking like he's probably got a month left before he's back, and that'll be great. We need another starter. We got rid of Yuli Gurriel, which is arguably the biggest impact move we've made. Yeah, so good things. I don't know. It's kind of we're in just a good spot. I don't know if there's much hype, but there's also not much to be bummed about. It's yeah, man, the Padres are doing good.
It's a good place to be as a fan.
Yeah. No.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Well, let's go to Boston and let's talk about the Red Sox.
Yeah, Matt, it's funny. You talk about like getting too caught up in the individual games. It's such a long season. It's twice as long
Hmm.
as like basketball and hockey seasons. It's what like 10 times as long as the football
I know.
season.
I'll get so mad after like one bad loss, and it's just like no,
Yeah, there's
realizing we have
the
140 games.
there's a me or there's like a TikTok or something that was like me after my favorite NFL team loses. It's like well, we'll get him next week. And it's like me after my favorite MLB team loses. Like what the fuck? He's like,
I've seen that.
it's interesting how that works. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know the logic behind it, but it's definitely hitting with us Boston fans because the Red Sox are the most up and down team right now. They just lost this afternoon, like right before we hopped on. They're 17-16 now, almost back to perfect mid, and they just like they win and they beat good teams sometimes. They'll win series against good teams, and then against some bad teams, they just look terrible. They've had some really, really gut-wrenching losses, some really, really embarrassing losses. The last 2 days, like yes, we just lost the series to the Toronto Blue Jays, second time this year. Blue Jays are not good. They have fallen off tremendously since we last talked about them. They're now 15-16, which it's not that much worse than us, but like they had been on a really bad streak. We were up 6-0 yesterday, end up losing that game. We were up 2-0 in the seventh today, end up losing this game. It's just it's a bummer because you see the vision when everything's going right. You see that this team could be one of the better teams in baseball, and they just haven't been able to put it all together at the same time, and that's a bummer. But some positives is Bregman has been great. He's been absolutely outstanding for us. Love that. Devers looks to be back. He's kind of had an up and down season, but he really has found it in the last week or so. Brian Bayo and Lucas Giolito have both returned from the IL and have made their season debuts. Giolito looked way better than expected yesterday. Bayo has been solid. Jaron Duran is heating up. Casas doesn't look quite as lost, although he's still, got a ways to go to get the slash line back up. But yeah, the real concerns are, the bullpen's not super deep because you rely on certain guys, and no one's perfect, so even they can have their nights. And the offense as a whole is just so inconsistent. Jose Barrios, who has not been a great pitcher for a while, looked really, really good today against the Red Sox, and it's just a bummer when that happens. But some weird injury news potentially. Christian Campbell was scratched from tonight's game with some rib discomfort, so haven't heard much about that. We'll see what that's about. Walker Buehler went back to Boston early because his shoulder wasn't feeling as strong coming, like in the recovery days after a start. So we'll see what that's about. Neither one has shown up as a significant concern, but, you don't like to hear it. And there's just a logjam right now because you got Roman Anthony tearing up AAA. He's got to come up at some point. He's going to be in the outfield. Who do you lose? Who do you sacrifice? Both in the starting lineup and then on the active roster. So, and starting pitching as well with Giolito back, Bayo back. Who goes where? What's going to happen? Tanner Houck had been terrible. He looked really good tonight. So maybe he's figured it out. There's just a lot that needs to happen roster-wise, and you were hoping that the team would be consistent enough that would be the concern, but now they're both kind of concerns. And so it's just, they're honestly, like, bias aside, I feel like they're one of the more interesting teams in baseball because so many different things could happen to this team. The roster could look so different in a lot of different ways. The final record could look different in a lot of different ways. So I'm wanting them to take off on a hot streak. Hasn't quite happened yet. hoping it comes soon.
All right. Well, speaking of hot streaks, let's talk about a team who is on the opposite of a hot streak. Quickly, we'll talk about the Angels. Still bad. Still bad, turns out. They're in the midst of an L5 right now, getting swept back to back by it was the Twins and then the Mariners. Even the Mariners was a two-gamer, kind of weird split between now and later. But didn't win, so we get that swept. Currently playing the Tigers, and so I don't imagine that will go very well. So they're in free fall at the moment. A little bit of bad injury news about Mike Trout. He was held out of today's game against the Tigers with a knee injury of some kind. By the time this episode drops, something will have been announced regarding that, I assume. And so we'll see what the news is on that. Turns out Kyron Paris is not the second coming of, he is not, the second coming of Babe Ruth, who could have seen that coming. And so I believe he might be like, one or two for his last, 30 something appearances. And so, that's come crashing back down to earth. And, so it's one of those things where, from here on forward, we can check in with the Angels and still bad or, maybe mid. But for now, the verdict is still bad. Moving forward into our next segment here. Look, we love to make predictions. It's our locked in segment here. You both have a prediction for us. Let's start with Matt.
Yeah. So my prediction for this week, I've gone away a little bit from trying to predict. Is this team going to be good? Is this player going to stay hot? Sports betting is just not really for me, so I don't really want to get into that. So I'm going a different route. I think that we could actually see the first, quote, big trade for the MLB. I mean, I think right now there's enough disparity in the league. You can already, you can see who are the bad teams, who are the good teams, which teams have needs. And, I think about a team like the Phillies, who we just talked about. Maybe the way that they can avoid getting into a bidding war for a player is trying to get ahead of it and try and get someone in early. I mean, there's teams that have good relievers that aren't good teams. And I'm not saying they necessarily need to go out and, throw the farm to try and get a closer, but they just need more arms who are going to come in after the starters and not blow up their leads. So, I think this week we could see a notable trade is how I'm going to phrase that. It does not have to be a superstar, but it's probably someone who you're like, I've heard of them. Not Drew, though, because Drew knows almost all of the players personally.
There was a trade today or yesterday, and I had never heard of the guy. Like the Nationals traded.
Are you saying that I'm correct?
Well, it wasn't. I don't. It's not notable. There's little trades.
Locked in, baby.
No, I can't even find it.
Yeah, I was just gonna say I really bad just want I want there to be a trade that happens, but I want it to be between the Rockies and the A's or something. Really just
Dude, well, the A's are the perfect example. I mean, a guy like Mason Miller, I assume he's got to be traded at some point. He's awesome.
I don't think he'll be traded this year because I think the A's still expect to contend when he's not this year, but when he's still on the roster.
Right. At some point in the next couple years.
Yeah, because he's got a lot of control left.
He looks like a Dodger to me.
Well, I'm sure he will be at some point.
All right. So that was Matt's, and we'll jump to Drew now for his prediction.
Yeah, my prediction. I'm going to go with the AL West, and the Seattle Mariners have been one of the hottest teams in baseball of late. They are 18-12 right now. And they have just looked great. They've won 4 in a row. They're 8-2 in their last 10. They play the Athletics and the Rangers in back-to-back series. Technically, the Astros are in second place, but the A's and the Rangers are neck and neck right behind them. I think the Mariners handle business against both these teams and look at a nice hefty lead in that AL West division that at this point it should be theirs to win. I know I predicted them to get third to start the year, but they have proven me wrong. Offensively, they've been great, and specifically, I want to shout out Jorge Polanco, who was just abysmal for them last year, and then re-signed with them like later in the offseason, and it was just like, what? Like, that's your big move? Like, what are you doing? He has been great for them. So
you could have had Jorge Polanco, but instead, big thumper.
Yeah, and it would have been. He's been playing a lot of DH, so I could have sacrificed Shohei for Jorge Polanco, but yeah, I think the Mariners take care of business and keep the line moving. I know they've had some pitcher injuries and stuff, but it hasn't slowed them down yet. So I like what I'm seeing from them. And you know what? I was really low on their offseason, and I still am. But I want the Mariners to be good. I always do. Mm-hmm. They never have, really.
Yeah.
And I just, they're the only team left who has never even been to a World Series. I want that for them. I'd love to see it.
Yeah, look, I know division rivals. I'm supposed to hate them. I've talked about this with you guys before. Due to my Seahawks love, I have a soft spot for Seattle sports, so I can't hate them. That's for sure. And we all knew as soon as they could start hitting at any sort of average or slightly above average level, they would be really good. And so here they are doing that and being really good. So hopefully that continues for them. All right, last bit of baseball. We wanted to update you guys on our home run draft. Look, let's see where these teams are standing as of yesterday. That was the 30th of April. And so we checked in, and Drew, take us through where we're at right now.
Yeah. So I don't know if we're ever gonna get away from this little number area because they keep going up, but they keep getting brought down. You can look back at that episode to figure out the math of it all. But Matt has a commanding lead right now. He's 11 home runs above me because he has 4 home runs to my -7 home runs. So what's happening right now is
this is my lowest score of the season, I thought.
Yeah, so we maybe if we do this again next season, we should maybe switch it to it's every 5 or something. It's just too many home runs. Our pitching staff gives up too many home runs compared to.
I'm looking at your note. I'm sure you'll get to that, but I didn't realize that many home runs were being hit and given up. Those are some big numbers.
Yeah. So. Right now my hitters have more home runs than Matt's hitters, at least in their positions.
I was gonna say, let's clarify. I've got so many home runs.
49 to 47 there. So if that was it, if that was the draft, this would be really fun, neck and neck. But unfortunately, the teams that I ended up getting stuck with are giving up home runs at a way faster rate than Matt's. There has been some improvement, a couple of your teams jumped up a decent amount, so maybe things will balance out, but right now I've given up 40 more home runs than Matt. It's 171 to 131 in that department, so that's how Matt is up by so much. But just some little notes on some of the players on our teams. Tyler Soderstrom, who was one of Matt's early big leaders, has kind of hit a home run drought, and I noticed a trend where he's been playing some left field, and he's your first baseman, so that could
there's a real possibility by the end of the season that I'm not scoring home runs anymore, purely based off of rule technicalities.
Yeah, so
I might not score home runs anymore.
I didn't expect that to happen. I don't know. I need to look more into the A's and to what's going on there.
The reason is they called up their superstar, top prospect first baseman. So they needed to find another spot. So he was either going to get moved to DH or still be first base and have that kid play DH. There was going to be some sort of movement, but it's damn.
Yeah. Well, this is a test year, it's a test year for the podcast overall, first time doing any of this stuff. This is, we'll see. We'll still crown a champ at the end of the year, but if the final score is -14 to -25, we're going to have to,
It's golf, man.
we're
Very
gonna
funny.
have to kind of rethink how we do these drafts. Um,
You say it's
uh,
like a first time thing. It does impact my daily mood. I'm just gonna put that out there.
I'd love to. I'd
This
love to.
impacts the day to day.
I'd love to brainstorm further because I really, I came up with this in 1 week. Um, I'd love to, kind of think. I like how we got every team involved.
Yeah.
I like that you picked positions. I might want to eliminate pitchers altogether, just forget about it, and just focus on the hitting. So maybe for next year we'll figure something out. But for now, 4 to -7 is where we're standing, and
Yep.
I'll
It's a
update you
banana
again
kind
next
of game.
week.
Yeah, there you go. All right, so that's where we're at with the home run draft. We've come to our final segment of the show. As always, we will do dingers and stingers. So let's start with Matt and give us your dinger this week. Let's start with the good.
Yeah, my dinger for the week is the Rams draft as a whole. It was really a pretty like not flashy draft, but we just got a lot of good players at value. We were able to pick up another draft pick for next year, which has potential to be the Arch Manning draft, but also just has a lot of great players, even if it's not. Um, and then on top of that, we lock up Matthew Stafford on a very team friendly deal for the next few years. So we have some flexibility. Is he going to play one more, two more? He can play up to 3 more years on this current deal. So yeah, it's looking good for the Rams right now. I originally was very bummed that we were trading out, even though there was a part of me that was scared we were going to draft Shadeur.
Mhm.
I was originally pretty bummed about that until I saw how much we got, and it was instantly like, nope, I'm good. Like, thank you. Next, please.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Drew, give us the dinger.
My dinger comes from baseball. I really considered going off book again. I've done back to back because last night the Minnesota Timberwolves eliminated the Lakers, who have Luka Doncic on their team. So it's like my least favorite team and one of my least favorite players getting eliminated. It's great. I just want to give honorable mention, shout out to that, and shout out my brother Luke, who is like the only Timberwolves fan in the world. No, that's not fair. That's not true. But he's always been a Timberwolves fan, and it's kind of mind boggling. So good for him. Uh, but my real dinger this week is we've just seen some really crazy things happen in MLB that are pretty rare.
So true.
So yesterday in the Blue Jays Red Sox game, Dalton Varsho came back playing center field, fully fell down, tumbled over, got up like on a knee, caught the ball still. If you haven't seen
Like
that catch, you
from
gotta look it
behind,
up.
like
Yeah, it's a really like it. I'm not gonna say it's like the most incredible catch I've ever seen, but like it's one of the most bizarre looking catches you'll ever see. So go check that out if you haven't. Also, this past weekend, Jaron Duran did a straight steal of home, which is one of the crazier things you can do in a baseball game because that's where the pitch goes. So
Right.
to be able to beat that is pretty impressive. You have to, exact perfect circumstances have to come together. So that was cool. And then he got immediately overshadowed because later that night, Eugenio Suarez of the Arizona Diamondbacks hit 4 home runs in a game. Something we haven't seen since 2017
Scooter.
when JD Martinez did it. And he was also wearing number 28 for the Arizona Diamondbacks in that game. So kind of interesting. Scooter Gennett did it that same year, but it was earlier in the season.
Yes.
I really thought I finally had a baseball fun fact.
Which it's crazy that there was 2 in 1 year because this was only when Suarez did it, it was only the 19th time in history that it's happened. And Major League Baseball's been going on since like 1869 or something like that. So, yeah, it's cool when you get to see historic stuff like that. So I always get excited.
Yeah, I don't know the exact I don't know the dimensions of Chase Field, but I've been there once, and it looks like the baseball stadium version of Costco in there. Like it is gigantic looking. Like when you're inside it, it feels huge. So to hit 4 home
Feels
runs
like
in
a
that stadium
warehouse.
too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it absolutely does. So to hit 4 home runs there too, it looks impressive when you're there and looking at it because it's just huge in there. Okay, So we've got stingers to go through. So let's go with Drew's stinger. Let's stay with you.
Yeah, this is like a true stinger compared
Yeah.
to some of the other stuff we saw. But a Pirates fan in the front row in that right field stands fell out. I don't know exactly what happened. He fell. It's a
Yeah.
21-foot drop, crumpled on the ground. Last I saw, he's still in critical condition, really bad shape. We've seen this happen, unfortunately, a couple times in the last 20-ish years where fans have fallen from various stands, and it never is good. Like, people have died. Absolutely horrible. I don't know what causes this. I don't know if fans are being dumb or if, the railings just need to be a little bit taller or what. But, there's nothing more fun, nothing more chill than just, going and catching a baseball game.
Yeah.
And so for something like that to happen, and I haven't heard anything if, family was there with him or anything like that, but it's just, a total nightmare scenario. It's really, really sad and crazy. So,
The update that I got or that I saw from just a beat reporter kind of guy in Pittsburgh was this is a dude who got super drunk at a game, which not, no shame, drink your drinks. But basically just got a little too excited. Just seconds before that, had ripped his shirt off, was pouring beer all over himself. Pirates got a big hit in the game. He got excited, and it just, you don't have the best balance, and you fall over a fence. He was there with, I think, a couple friends and his girlfriend. So.
Yeah, so, I mean, that's another part of it, I guess. It's drink responsibly, be a responsible person out in the world. If not for other people's safety, for your own safety. But, yeah, just terrible. I hope he's okay. But yeah, absolute nightmare situation to happen at a professional sporting event. So, prayers up for him, thoughts for him.
Yeah, absolutely. Hope he turns out okay. Yeah, that's just a cold, crazy deal. So, all right, let's end with Matt's stinger for the week.
Yeah, this one has made me pretty mad. My stinger, I don't have a big thing of notes for this. But my stinger for this week was Mel Kiper at the NFL draft. Widely considered one of the most respected personalities in the NFL draft. I mean, he's been here kind of since it became a more public thing and kind of an event that was advertised and promoted. So he's rightfully earned his spot here. But watching him crash out about Shadeur Sanders the entirety of the draft, taking away screen time and notoriety and deserved time from other prospects was honestly really frustrating. And I'm sure no player is going to come out and be like, oh, why didn't I get my screen time? But it's there were dudes in the first round who got opportunities to be interviewed on stage who weren't shown. I believe he was on the ESPN broadcast, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. They were not shown. They were not given their screen time. Having their live interview filmed because the camera's on Mel Kiper complaining that Shadeur Sanders isn't being drafted and NFL has no idea how to evaluate quarterbacks. And it pisses me off coming from a guy who literally said he'd quit his job if Jimmy Clausen wasn't a superstar quarterback. Jimmy Clausen sucked. It's just one of those things. I understand you want to be exciting and you maybe the cameras turn on and there's a little bit over the top eccentric behavior, but it went basically 3 straight days of him disrespecting the rest of the players in this draft just so he could cater to the idea that the NFL sucks, they don't know what he's doing, look at me, I do, Shadeur Sanders is a good quarterback, whatever. And it's even if you love a prospect, cool, that let that be known and then let that be it.
It was very strange. It felt like, and you said it, he's been doing this for years. He's obviously gotten some wrong. He's gotten some tremendously wrong. Everyone. So, for him to act like, A, he's the end-all, be-all. B, it's a big problem. and
Right,
like
right.
and like C, it's like he just turned the whole event into about him and about Shadeur Sanders when all that needs to be said is, you know what? I think these teams are wrong. I think he's going to be great. I think whoever ends up taking him is going to have a good player, and let's move on. He really like went all in on this, and it was kind of it was strange and a little bit sad. Like you've done this for so many years, and you're just having like a little pity party, like because
It was
people
wild
disagree with
watching
you.
him have a 3 day crash out. Like legitimately a 3 day long crash out from a dude who's supposed to be one of the most respected guys in the NFL draft space. And it just like it put such a like damper on the rest of the draft because again, this is supposed to be the most exciting day of these guys' lives. Like these players are having their dreams come true. I don't care if you're the first pick or the last pick. If you want to play in the NFL, being drafted is like the dream. Obviously, Hall of Fame, accolades, career, etc. The American dream of football is hearing your name called on draft day and like getting that call and the fact that it's getting overshadowed by it's essentially like you think about any time you've played sports as a kid and the coach's kid who wasn't even the best guy gets the game ball, gets the attention, gets the stuff. The coach's kid gets the stuff, and it's like that's what he basically coaches son everybody at this draft. Like Cam Ward got such a little amount of time being the first overall pick where they barely showed his interview on stage. They barely talked about him or his story. When he got drafted, the film they played was Shadeur Sanders tape because they're talking about here's what Cam Ward can do versus Shadeur Sanders. It was still a comparison game. And it's just like at the NFL draft, I understand, but like let's leave the analysis out of it so every player has a chance to be celebrated. And like I don't know, it just sucked. Like it to like even now I just am a little bit upset about it. It's like why did you have to ruin what was such a fun thing? Like and over a single player, it feels weird.
It felt like he expected to be vindicated with like Shadeur being picked very highly, and then with each passing pick, with each passing round, he was just getting more and more indignant, and like they don't know what they're doing. It's like, well, yeah, like obviously sometimes they don't, and obviously sometimes they do. Like that's just how the draft works. Like
Yeah. Well, and it was so weird too, because like he tried to do the whole like I said Tom Brady coming out of college was going to be this, and I was like, did you? Like, did you? Were you the guy who said Tom Brady, the dude who couldn't even start in college,
he's gonna win
that's going to be my
7
goat?
Super Bowls.
Yeah, it's like I guarantee, no matter how high you were on Tom Brady, you weren't high enough. Guarantee it.
The
So don't try
Patriots were
and
not high enough.
the Patriots skipped on him a ton. And so it's just like, don't try and like be the guy who claims something that you didn't for the little bit of clout to justify you missing on this prediction. Because guess what? Everybody did. Everybody thought Shadeur Sanders was going earlier. Every single person, but not every analyst cried about it on national TV and took away screen time and deserved time from these players. And so that I think is just the part that makes me mad. Is just like grow up, dude. You're like the oldest person on that stage, and you are being the most immature. Like grow up, just even a little. That it made me mad.
Look, Mel, we know you're watching. Grow up. That's what we have to say to you.
Tag
All
Mel
right.
Kiper in the comments.
Don't do that. Uh,
I say
that'll
do it, dude.
that'll do it for this week's episode of Dingers and Stingers. We appreciate you guys for watching and listening along with us. I mentioned at the beginning, but we got our Instagram up and running, so follow us there at Dingers and Stingers. We will be, hopefully posting there, for each episode at least, and then, hopefully maybe we'll get into doing more on Instagram. I haven't been on Instagram myself in over 4 years, so I'm getting back into it. We're trying to see and see what I can do. So, but follow us there. We're gonna have some fun stuff going on over there. subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't already. Share us around. We'd love for you to spread the love. But we appreciate you for listening. And until next week, take care, and we will see you then.